Thank you so much for joining us. It's a great day to be talking about skills and skills in the workplace. My name is Robert Paulson of SHL, and you're here because the relevancy to hire and develop talent with both technical knowledge and soft skills is at an all-time high. Teams are more spread out, and they're quickly picking up new software and technology that will give them an advantage in their respective industries. However, no amount of technology can recreate an individual's social, emotional, and creative intelligence. And for over 40 years, SHL's talent acquisition and talent management assessments have helped organizations build skilled, motivated, and capable workforces. And now we are really putting the word skilled in bold. Today, I'm joined by Nicole David, Head of US Consulting at SHL, and Andy Nellison, Head of Talent Acquisition Solutions at SHL. Welcome, Andy and Nicole. How are you both doing?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We will be checking the comments and questions section frequently. Please feel encouraged to join us in this discussion, as we would very much like this to be a discussion between all of you here joining us today. Quick little run through of our agenda. We're going to do a level set on the definition of skills, the benefits of skills-based hiring models, practical examples that will include a case study, and then the Josh Bersin Power Skills model. And to get things warmed up, we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to ask everybody to pull out their phones and scan a QR code, because we'd like to ask the first question to be around, what is your best professional skill? So go ahead and get your phones out, scan that. I'll kick things off for us and share what mine is. I believe my best skill is communication, as I've had to work in many digital and face-to-face environments in both retail and sales, as well as teaching settings. So I do believe that communication is my strongest skill. Nicole, what's yours?
Sure. I would have to go with adaptability. I think I'm fairly adept at adjusting to changing situations. So yes, I would go with adaptability.
I think I would, Nicole, I've worked with you for 10 years, so I would definitely agree that adaptability is your superpower. For me, I think I would go with curiosity. A big part of my job is I get to do a lot of research, partnering with our customers, so kind of better understanding how talent acquisition teams, kind of what their priorities are. And I also kind of do research and try to better understand the needs of candidates. And so every time I engage in those research efforts, I feel myself just really engaged with work in general. So I think curiosity is probably my greatest professional skill.
Yeah, and if we take a look at some of the other skills that are populating in our word cloud here, we see a lot of really interesting things like resilience and creativity and empathy, organizational skills, presentation skills. Andy, just taking a look at some of these here, are you surprised at some of these results?
Not really. I think the definition of skill is really evolving pretty quickly. I think if we had asked this question even 5 years ago, we probably would see a lot more in the way of kind of functional technical skills represented, which you actually see very little of in the word cloud. This is great. One of the reasons why I think that is, frankly, is that because the pace of change is so fast, the idea of a hard skill or a technical functional skill has actually become quite soft. The shelf life of a technical skill is like 9 to 12 months these days. And so it's really hard to create talent programs, selection, development, succession programs that are built on skills that are changing that quickly. And so when I look at what I think historically we would call soft skills, what I'm seeing on the screen today, I like to call them professional business skills personally, but like a lot of these things are quite innate. Like these soft skills are actually quite hard: collaboration, communication, problem solving, empathy. And again, I think we can get a little bit more mileage out of our talent programs when we're latching on to these kinds of skills that go deep into kind of who we are.
Very well said, Andy. Thank you for that insight. And thank you, everyone, for participating in our word cloud and sharing your skills. And now that we've gone through this, Nicole, I think now would be a really good time for us to really know the definition of skills. Can you help us out with that?
Sure, absolutely. I think it's helpful to think about the definition of skills as broadening, to expand beyond those hard skills, the typing, Microsoft Office, specific coding skills, et cetera, now to encompass soft skills, these professional and business skills that Andy was mentioning and that we saw on the word cloud as well. So I like to think about skills really as the full set of activities, behaviors that are really essential for successful performance in a job. And it might be helpful to illustrate this point by showing the SHL Universal Skills Taxonomy. So this universal taxonomy really is helpful as we think about navigating from broad concepts or broader topics. As you see here, we've pulled out an example of interacting and presenting, and then step down to the more detailed levels until we finally reach these more discrete skills. This is a really helpful way to get from a more kind of nebulous idea of how roles are changing, what we need to get to, and really step it through to get to those kind of observable, measurable skills that an individual might need to perform the role that they're in, and as we anticipate the skills that will be necessary for future performance as roles evolve due to technology, digital transformation, those types of things. Now, we do have a separate model for our technical and functional skills, which of course are still important. So we don't want you to leave today receiving the message that, hard skills are no longer important. They are, and there are certain roles for which very specific skills will always be important. You don't want to go to a surgeon or get into an airplane, flown by a pilot who learned how to do those things on YouTube. So, but these more human kind of professional business skills seem to be really emerging as important as we adapt as the world of work around us kind of, evolves. So if we go to the next slide, this sort of leads us to a question of, are all skills created equal? And as Andy mentioned, really the shelf life of some of these hard skills are quite short. So we've kind of developed this metaphor of the tree, thinking about those hard skills as the leaves that kind of, change and fall off every year. And then as we move down through the trunk and ultimately into the roots of the tree, we really arrive at these more durable skills and competency, these more innate and I think human skills, right? We kind of think about critical thinking, creative problem solving, collaboration, those types of skills that we believe and that other research supports will be really crucial to success in the future of work.
Yeah, Nicole, this is a really great visualization because it definitely breaks down the differences between some of these skills that you're talking about, especially when talking about discrete skills within people like these roots, these behaviors that are innate and part of who we are, and the importance that they have and the relevancy within what we bring to work within ourselves, other than more of these more observable skills like utilizing tools and software to complete tasks. So thank you for breaking this down for us, really beneficial. Now that we have a little bit more of a grounding rule on what these skills mean, let's talk a bit more about why so many organizations are pivoting to a skills-based hiring model. And Andy, can you outline some of the big benefits that you're seeing right now within this skills-based hiring?
Yeah, happy to. I think there are 4 primary benefits, and I'll just quickly lay them out now, and then we can spend a little bit more time on each. But as kind of Nicole already mentioned, work is changing quickly, and so understanding the change in work with in the language of skills can be quite beneficial. So kind of rapidly changing future of work is one. There's this idea of like the emergence of potential. Thinking of potential in a slightly different way than maybe we have in other kind of HR contexts. So we can talk a little bit more about how skills help with this notion of kind of embracing potential as kind of a hiring mechanism. The third is important topic of diversity, equity, and inclusive hiring. And we see skills as being a real benefit in moving those strategies forward. And then lastly, there's this idea of kind of talent intelligence or people insights. Aggregating data on people in some really powerful ways, and skills plays a role there as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for breaking this down for us. And a reminder to our audience, please chime in with your thoughts. If we touch on something that you want to dive into a little bit more, stop us and ask us any questions or leave a comment. We're going to definitely get to that and ask you a little bit more about what you're interested in right now within this skills session. So Nicole, could you tell us why skills-based hiring is critical given the pace of changes that we're seeing at work right now, especially in this future of work discussion?
Sure, absolutely. The very core of work is changing so dramatically. It's just bringing significant changes to the skills that are required for individuals to be successful over time. I read a book recently called The Adaptation Advantage, and there was one point made in that book that really stuck with me. And that is that the rate of change will never be slower than it is today. So let's just let that wash over us for a moment. I think we probably all feel like things are changing at an incredible pace. And the reality is the rate of technological change is exponential. And so that could feel a little bit overwhelming, but thankfully there are some models and ways of thinking about this evolution that help us kind of put some order to it and start our thinking around how we might approach adapting to this ever-changing world. So one model in particular that I found to be particularly helpful was put out by SHRM. It's their model on the future of work, and it really is made up of 3 components. First, how work is accomplished. So we've already touched on the impacts of automation, robotics, generative AI. These tools are coming to help us augment work in roles that have kind of been free of it for some time, right? Like we know that the world of manufacturing, for example, this is not new. Automation has been affecting those types of roles for a long, long time. But with the introduction of generative AI, now kind of professional level knowledge workers in the very near future will be able to ask AI to draft a proposal or do things that were kind of unimaginable even a handful of years ago, right? The second component is who does the work. So there's more crowdsourcing. There's been a trend, especially for younger workers, toward gig work, a mix of part-time and full-time employees. We're seeing some older workers coming back into the workforce, people who are at or approaching retirement age coming back into the workforce. And then finally, when and where work is done. We're seeing more flexible work, hybrid, remote, some in office, and it's unlikely that it's likely that mix will exist as part of our reality going forward. So with these factors at play, we just need to think flexibly about what is required for success as a work context evolves. And just to give a couple examples, here at SHL, we've done research on digital transformation, and that work revealed that skills such as building relationships, influence are really crucial for success. So it's really about finding people who are able to make forward progress in more ambiguous types of situations. We'd also done some research on remote work. So what are the skills that make someone, well suited to that work environment? And, that research, perhaps not surprisingly, revealed that skills like time management and a focus on self-development and taking that initiative to grow and learn were really crucial. And at a time where the demand, the applications for remote jobs dramatically outpace the number of postings for that type of work, it can be a helpful lens for a customer or an organization to think about how do I sift through those and pick the people who are most likely to be successful in that environment.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And Andy, I'd like to ask, what is your opinion on the relationship that's going to exist now between HR departments and businesses with this type of thinking?
Yeah, I was just going to add, one of the things that we've noticed in working with our customers is that everything that Nicole just mentioned, maybe for the first time ever, has like business stakeholders running towards HR saying, I need some help. I'm drowning in all of this change. I don't understand necessarily the skills that I need to kind of drive the function forward, the business forward. And we haven't always had the most harmonious relationship between HR and business leaders. And I think this is a real moment in time that gives us an opportunity. We, HR practitioners, talent practitioners, we have tools that can help, I think important tools that can help set some definition to skills profiles and like the various ways that we can align talent strategies to kind of help our business partners move things forward. And they're more receptive to that help than ever before. So we should be taking full advantage.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. And we're getting a couple of comments coming into the chat here. And Sophia, great call out on craving human connection. I think part of the skills discussion is helping to close that gap a little bit more about this connection talk that we're talking about here. This is a really great discussion so far. Thank you, everyone that's been involved. Let's move on to a little bit more of some of the other benefits that have been mentioned. Andy, you said something about the emergence of potential, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about that phrase because it sounds like a good title for my memoir. Can you unpack that just a little bit more for us?
I think your memoir will be the realization of potential, Robert. Let's not sell yourself short. Yeah, so when we feel the pain of this highly ambiguous future, incredibly uncertain, we don't know exactly what the destination is going to be. We just know we're going to live through constant change. Hiring around a very kind of narrow set of technical requirements seems to become a little less valuable. And so I was doing like a roundtable session with a handful of talent acquisition leaders a few weeks ago. And one of them mentioned this idea that they're pivoting to this hiring for potential model. And I was surprised by the energy that the other TA leaders responded. And they didn't have the exact same language per se, but the same sentiment, which was they're partnering more closely than ever with their kind of talent management counterparts. And they're more interested in finding people that are highly adaptable, are flexible, they embrace learning. So these people that are likely to be successful long-term in this ambiguous world of work. And if they latch onto those people, they're then going to partner to figure out where they can go. And the kind of laddering and latticing and mobility efforts that are going to maximize the potential that they can bring to the business, but it's less this very narrow focus on let's hire for this specific job. Rather, let's expand our thinking a little bit, and skills can help us do that. We can put some definition around what the idea of potential is for your organization, for your function, and we can use that, layer that in as hiring criteria. And we just see a lot of organizations taking full benefit of that right now.
Absolutely. Nicole, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in practice, the way that we're seeing that come to life in organizations is some organizations either removing educational requirements or removing some of the very strict requirements around function-specific experience, and becoming more open to looking at a broader set of candidates. Starting to look in places where maybe they wouldn't have before necessarily. And I think that comes with a lot of potential upside in that there's an opportunity to bring in a broader set of perspectives. There's we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of DE&I impact in a little bit, but certainly that's a component of it as well. So we just are seeing a trend toward greater openness to finding people with the skills required for the future that may have been acquired in less traditional ways.
Well said. And just to backtrack a little bit, because we did have one question that came in from a Mr. Josh Cotton asking about where self-development is coming from as an important skill within ourselves and in the workplace. I believe, Nicole, you mentioned something about self-improvement, right?
Yeah, I did. Some of that emerged in our research around remote work potential. But I think that there are, we're seeing trends toward like kind of a willingness to learn and kind of the curiosity that Andy was mentioning. There are just some of these kind of innate traits and characteristics that make people more, kind of amenable to making changes, making adjustments. I mean, just reflecting on a sort of personal anecdote, there was a point in my career where I felt like a lot of the value that I brought to the organization was because of very specific knowledge about this tool that I'd helped to implement. And then things change as they do, and we pick a different tool and implement that. And there was this moment, this was relatively early in my career, but there was this moment where I thought, what do I provide now? Right? So you got to pivot. And that comes with seeking out novel experiences, trying new things, finding a new spot to shine.
And if I could just add, we're not going to dive into it per se in this discussion, but some skills are more developable than others. And again, that's part of the value of this like skills-based hiring approach is better understanding, well, where are the skills that I'm buying? Where are the skills that I'm building? How does that fit into my kind of broader skills-based strategy, whether it's hiring all the way through, succession and development? Good call up.
Yeah, thank you both for touching on that. And thank you for the great question, Josh. Let's move on to another topic here that's very big for organizations right now, diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. Nicole, what have been some of the positive benefits within skills-based hiring that we've seen when pairing through some of these big goals that organizations are undertaking?
Mm-hmm. So we've touched on this a little bit, but I think by kind of loosening some of the education or industry function specific experience requirements, it leads us to a place where organizations are able to pull from a broader pool of candidates. And that could mean, opening themselves up, setting themselves up in a position where it's more likely that they bring people in who just have different kinds of backgrounds, experiences, whether that be, education or different socioeconomic background or diversity in all sorts of ways. And so in some ways, it kind of democratizes, the opportunity for some of these roles because they're now starting to look at individuals who have acquired crucial skills through a variety of different avenues. Now, we know that DE&I is a very important set of initiatives for many, many organizations. The benefit as well is that there's a growing body of research demonstrating that work output is actually enhanced by having more diverse people together in work groups, coming at a problem from a different angle, coming in with different contexts, different set of experiences. So it's a way to, I think, help to achieve some of those DE&I initiatives and to enhance the quality of the work that those work groups are putting out. So it's just, really that skills can be a more fair criteria to embrace, of course, assuming that we've got an objective way to measure them through, structured interviews, assessments, those kinds of things. So I don't know, Andy, if there's anything else that you would add to those thoughts.
No, I mean, I think you covered it well. The only thing I might add is that skills can be highly transferable across different contexts, across different roles. And so if the intention is to more actively manage careers because you want to get the most out of people as part of your DE&I initiatives, understanding kind of skill strengths relative to individuals across different roles and responsibilities can be a good way to really push people, that you want to get the most out of and build a career with. You can kind of navigate their way through. You can manage their careers in a way that's beneficial to them and to you, as long as you have that skills kind of understanding.
And in terms of understanding, this is a great segue into our next topic here, Andy, in terms of talent intelligence and gathering that data and understanding talent in this skills conversation. Where does this fall now in understanding where we get this intelligence from?
Yeah, talent intelligence probably requires a little bit of a definition here. So many of the HR leaders, TA and talent acquisition and talent management that I talk to, they often tell me that one of their goals is to mature their function. And it only takes a couple of questions when you ask, well, what does maturity mean to you, before this idea of creating data, objective data on people insights, whatever language they use, is part of this maturation strategy that they have for the HR function. And so you can imagine a world where you want to create all sorts of intelligence on a given individual in the ways that we're talking about, so that you can really foster their careers and you can get the most out of them, et cetera. But you can also imagine how you can gather up all of that intelligence in an aggregate view, and you can apply that aggregate view of your workforce, like a workforce planning perspective, relative to your business strategy. So be that functional business strategy or enterprise business strategy. And so skills is the intelligence, in our view, that allows you to be most successful and effective at that. You can use skills to support, every stage of the kind of talent management journey, from hiring to onboarding, development, succession, et cetera, right? So skills offers value in each of those in isolation. Again, though, if you get that aggregate view against the workforce, all grounded in skills and an understanding of skills, you can then think about applying those strengths or gaps relative to your overall strategy. Real power there from a kind of workforce intelligence, talent intelligence perspective. And again, we just see skills as being really essential as we think about maturing these functions.
Absolutely. And Nicole, anything to add?
Yeah, I think that really resonates, Andy. And increasingly, we're hearing from customers, we know that this role is going to evolve because we're layering in some additional technology. We want to understand who of our current workforce has the skills to embrace that and work in the updated version of that role. But sometimes also, this role is changing. We may not need as many people performing that particular role, but we still have a desire to keep this talent inside of our organization. We have all these other needs. How do we approach figuring out who might be a good fit elsewhere, or what kind of training interventions may be helpful to build skills? So I think that's just a real life example that's coming up more and more frequently.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for giving a little more insight on that. And speaking of examples, Nicole, thank you for that amazing segue. Andy, I know you've done some work recently understanding the evolution of customer service landscape and how it's relating to the skills discussion. Could you share this example with us?
Yeah, so we did a bunch of research on kind of customer service and contact center roles, and I thought it was worth sharing that because we expect that all of you have, customer service as a pivotal role in your organization. But I think the story might be resonant as you think about the roles that are pivotal and how they're changing within your business. So we went back to 2008 and we said, well, let's first understand the role of a customer service contact center agent. What does the job look like? And overwhelmingly, you can see 57% in this gray bar on the left in 2008. Overwhelmingly, the job was just transacting. It was customers would call in, you would reset their PIN for them, or you would send them a new credit card if they lost one, or whatever transactional issue that came up for the customer, you solved it. And you kept the queue short, you got them on their way quickly, and that's what success was. Well, what's happened since 2008? I mean, we've invested millions and millions of dollars helping customers solve their own problems across industries. So you go to the website, you log into the app, you engage with a chatbot, you reset your own PIN, and you get your own credit card sent to you if you've lost it. And so those kinds of engagements with customers have dramatically decreased when we look at the job on the right, the stacked bar chart on the right. The thing that has increased is the blue section, which is these, we call them inquiry calls, but it's just more nuanced, more challenging conversations. So every customer engagement is dissimilar to the one before it. So they're all unique. They're all relatively complex. And it's just a different skill set that allows you to be successful on the right side in the job today versus 2008. So we wanted to kind of take this the next step. And if you go to the next slide, we said, well, what skills are customer service and contact center agents valuing in job descriptions? I'm not sure if we can advance the slide, that'd be great. And so we aggregated this view of the skills that are being prioritized in job descriptions, and you can see everything across, like above that horizontal line. Over the past 6 years, we're looking at skills that are showing up more and more in these job descriptions. So it's a lot of these business skills that we're talking about: communication and listening and empathy and collaboration. And everything that's below that line are skills that we're seeing less of. So it's these kind of written communication, Microsoft Word, computer usage. And again, it just reinforces the skills that we're valuing in a hiring context are the ones that influence that customer experience more and more. And the ones that we're devaluing are some of these more technical skills that previously prioritized things like process efficiency. And so again, curiosity is one of my skill strengths. If we go to the next slide, we wanted to take this even further. And so we, for years, we've been collecting assessment validation evidence on customer service agents across roles, across geographies, like literally hundreds of validation studies in our database. And so I went back and I said, well, what were the skills that were most predictive of the hard business outcomes that our customers cared about back in 2011 and 12? And it really was often more of these technical functional skills, data entry, typing, navigation. And then I said, well, all right, well, let's look more recently at what data correlates with business outcomes today. And it's some of these softer skills. So listening effectively, or creating a positive impression, or maintaining a good working relationship, all of which is to say, if you go to the last slide, like, we've introduced some new assessment tools that really embrace this idea of the 21st century skills for customer service agents. Hoping we can advance the slide, please. Thank you. And it just, again, reinforcing that the job has shifted pretty fundamentally. And if you look from left to right, like, the skills that are measured in the, some of the assessments that we recommend for customer service agents, they can be quite different. So on the right, copes with setbacks and persuades others, adapts to cultural standards. You see this real shift away, and it makes sense when you understand kind of the business driver for some of these changes. So again, I'm not suggesting that customer service is the job that you care most about, but the broader point is our business partners, again, they're raising their hand and they're saying, listen, the job has fundamentally shifted. Help me understand the skills that I should be prioritizing. And so hopefully this is just a good case example that kind of brings that to life. And it demonstrates the real evolution that can take place in the skills required for a job.
Yes, and Andy, I mean, even though you say this is one example in a specific industry, I think this kind of highlights what Nicole was talking about earlier, is that the value of the taxonomy available in all these different industries and roles. I mean, Nicole, can you touch a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's just really, the taxonomy can be really, really helpful, again, in helping to navigate from the broader business strategy down to what do we actually need people to do? And I think if I consider where, sometimes engagements with can be challenging, or where customers or organizations can feel stuck, it is in that translation between big picture, kind of board level initiatives, go accomplish this. We can really help using by using the taxonomy to step down to that level of detail to get to identify and measure the skills that will be most essential for success. So it's just a practical tool for getting from A to B.
Absolutely. And it can be obviously a huge step between A to B, even though it's right next to each other. And to that point, we've done some interesting analyses with the Burson model for skills, and in a world full of thousands of skills, and even 96 included in the SHL taxonomy, I know it's obviously very tough to know where to start, but we'd like to help with that. So with the Josh Burson model, we were actually able to map some of those taxonomies and competencies against the 16 essential skills that they called power skills. And Nicole, could you walk us through some of that power skill mapping that we did?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll speak to it a bit here, but you'll see there's a QR code on the screen now. You can go ahead and download that full white paper if that's something that you're interested in learning more about. But if we go on to the next screen, I can share with you just a little bit about these power skills. So as Robert mentioned, Burson surveyed HR thought leaders from around the world to really understand what are the skills that those HR leaders viewed as being kind of the X factor for success in the future. And they kind of grouped them ultimately into these 16 power skills. So they're the softer skills. I think of them as being the more human skills. One thing that jumps out to me here is that these are things that are going to be harder, I think, for AI to sort of replicate. So, these are very kind of behavior-based types of skills, and ones that would align to historically or traditionally what we maybe would have thought about as soft skills. So if we go on to the next slide, so we took that interesting piece of work by Burson, and we thought, what might we find if we use some of our assessment tools and sort of look through that lens of the 16 power skills? So what we did is sort of mapped using the SHL Universal Skills Taxonomy, mapped those onto the 16 power skills, and then collected data from nearly 70,000 people around the world in the interest of figuring out which top power skills emerge by region. So here we're looking at kind of people scoring in about the top third, and then we split that by region to see how those skills line up and are similar or different. And I think we've got people from a number of different regions around the world. So, you know, some of this may resonate with you or may surprise you a bit. So looking at a regional cut can be helpful, but we also took a cut by industry, and I think this can be really interesting. So if we go into the next slide, we wanted to see how do the top power skills vary by industry and where are they similar? So we've got just a couple of examples here on the screen. So let's just take retail and healthcare as an example. So you can see that both kindness and empathy emerge as top power skills for those industries. Now, if we think about what's been happening kind of in the economy broadly, we've seen kind of a tightening of roles in the retail space, and it appears that there is now and will continue to be growing demand for people working in the healthcare space. So while, you know, at first blush, you might not think there would be a lot of overlap there. The research that we've done shows that there is actually some alignment between some of the core power skills, and that perhaps with some additional, you know, training, for example, healthcare organizations could look to tap into, you know, people who have experience in retail and kind of, you know, different power skills, but sort of similar dynamic as we look across banking and financial services and manufacturing. So that was just an interesting way we thought to cut the data. But it also led us to think about what has changed over time? What happens if we look at how power skills have changed in the last several years, or have they? So interestingly, many of the power skills did show an increase. And what we're showing here are the 3 power skills that showed the greatest increase over a several year period. So you can see here that tenacity, kindness, and time management all had fairly significant increases. And, you know, as I think about working through the pandemic, et cetera, it did kind of feel like it made work feel a bit more human in a sense. We had a lot of people working from home. Some of the walls came down a little bit between our home life and work life. And I do think I saw people exhibiting more kindness and empathy. Certainly time management skills were put to the test, as well as many people were forced into, you know, a different or unique sort of work structure. So yes, so happy to share those results for you. Again, if you're interested, feel free to download the full white paper for more details on that piece of work.
Thank you, Nicole, for highlighting all of that. This has been such an amazing session. We've covered so many great topics and materials within skills hiring. And the quote, "How you do anything is how you do everything," really sticks out for me right now. I mean, we just covered so much information, how the very nature of specific roles and industries are changing based on skills present within individuals. And the word skills is still so very broad and continues to be defined by what we say and do within the context of our work lives and in our personal lives as well. If there are any questions that would like to be answered at any point here, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I know we're really cutting it close to time now just because we had that delay at the start, but we will answer your questions by the end of the day today. So go ahead and throw them in the chat, please. And take this time to reevaluate what your idea of skills is and how to apply this to old job descriptions or capabilities you look for in candidates when hiring and developing talent. I think the most important part in the skills discussion is that it really isn't all zeros and ones. ChatGPT isn't going to take us over and none of us are going to work again. This is still a very human reflection of a person's innate behaviors and capabilities rooted in powerful and now measurable forces like empathy and tenacity and integrity. And we would love to continue this discussion with you some more. So please reach out to us at SHL and share how you are changing your idea around skills-based hiring within your organization, and scan the QR code on screen to provide us with feedback for planning for more sessions like this in the future. I can't thank you all enough. And Andy and Nicole, on behalf of myself, thank you for joining me and answering some of my questions. This has been Nicole, Andy, and Robert of SHL, People Science, People Answers.